Hello, you're listening to 89.5 FM KCFV The Wave. Diverse music for your diverse mind. That was Coloring Outside the Lines by Mr. Wives. And before that was Dead Girls by Broke. Diverse music, everyone! Talk about tonal whiplash. Hello, I'm your host, Jel, and this is GameBabble Live, your video game news and information show which airs every Wednesday from 1 to 3 p.m. So we love to kick the show off by talking about what games came out this week, what's coming out next week, and what anime are in theaters. So let's get started. PlayStation 4, what'd you get? Well, the PlayStation 4 got Always Sometimes Monsters, the Apollo 11 VR experience, Cyberdimension Neptunia 4 Goddesses Online, which is an action spin-off of the Hyperdimension Neptunia game. I've heard some slightly negative things about it, but only slightly. It's not bad, just some people liked the other action games in the series more. I was certainly very amused by the previous one, which was like Neptunia and Blanc versus the zombie hordes or something. Anyway, after that we got Echo, we got Fort Defense, Marvel's Guardians of the Galaxy Episode 4, Who Needs You, Middle-earth Shadow of War Gold Edition, Radial G Racing Evolved finally hit America. That is sort of like F-Zero in VR, although it also supports a non-VR mode. Raid World War II, Raiden 5 Director's Cut, which is a classic top-down shoot-'em-up series. Raw Data VR, which we will be discussing later in the show. That was certainly the game I decided to pick up this week. Revolve, Stereo Aereo, Summon Night 6 Lost Borders Amu Edition, which supposedly actually came out after a year of delays. Thanks, Vic. The Coma Recruit Deluxe Edition, The Invisible Hours, which is another VR game. The King of Fighters 14 Special Anniversary Edition, which I assume is King of Fighters 14 with the bonus DLC characters included, but I can't be sure. And Toho Kobuto 5 Toho Kobuto V Birth Battle. It's certainly more than the fifth Toho game. It's not even part of the official Toho series, but yes, that is a Virtual-on-style Toho game in 3D, and it happens to also feature a VR mode. I think they released the VR mode in America, because it was patched in later. If you check out the GameBabble YouTube channel, which is YouTube/user/GameBabble show, I did a video on the Japanese version of that a long while back. It's very tacked on, but still kind of enjoyable. Anyway, apparently today we're getting Alteric, whatever that is, Miko Gakko Monogatari Kaede episode. Okay. Rocket League Fast and Furious, and on Friday the 13th, we get Friday the 13th, the game, and The Evil Within 2, and White Noise 2, and something truly terrifying, WWE 2K18 Deluxe Edition. I'm actually hearing something about loot boxes showing up in that game, so it might actually be terrifying. I don't know for sure. I don't follow the WWE games too closely. I just give them a yearly rent, because I'm always curious what the custom character system is going to be like. I kind of liked what they had in 2K16, and then 2K17, they took out the proportion edit function and didn't add a whole lot else, so I was like, I think I'll wait this one out. We'll see what they do for 2K18. I'd love to love it again. And yeah, no, 2K16 wasn't even that good. I had some fun with it. Anyway, moving right along, Xbox One, what'd you get? Xbox One got Danger Zone. It also got Deadbeat Heroes, FIFA 18, Marvel's Guardians of the Galaxy Episode 4, Who Needs You, Middle-earth Shadow of War Gold Edition, Raid World War II. Today it gets Rocket League Fast and Furious and Shiny. And then on Friday the 13th, it also gets Friday the 13th, the game, The Evil Within 2, WWE 2K18, and a game called DK the Mayor. Okay, whatever. Moving on, Nintendo Switch got 88 Heroes, 98 Heroes Edition. Soldam, Drop Connect Erase, which I know is a puzzle game, looks pretty fun. Tiny Barbarian DX. Toho Kobuto V Burst Battle came out on Switch, and amazingly actually got a boxed release, which is kind of weird. Tomorrow, it will be getting Arcade Archives Neo Geo, The King of Fighters 95, which was the first King of Fighters game to let you actually pick who you wanted in your team. Because the first one was 94, and that one the teams were preset. Anyway, Super Beat Sports. Ooh, that's, Super Beat Sports is apparently an enhanced version of a game that was released on, like, cell phones and stuff. I think I heard it's from Harmonix? It was either from Harmonix or Innis. Let me double check this. It was some company I cared about. Yes, it was Harmonix. And it's musical sports. Think a 4-player party version of Rhythm Heaven with a sports theme. And that's Super Beat Sports. So I might need that depending on pricing. Also some game called The Flame and the Flood, Wolverblade, and Yono and the Celestial Elephants. Celestial Elephants, people. I do not ask questions. Nothing came out on 3DS this week. And on Vita, we got Semi-Spheres, Son of Scoregasm, Square Boy vs. Bullets Arena Edition, and Toho Kobuto V Burst Battle. On the 11th, today, on the 11th, we get Alteric, and on Friday the 13th, Bad Apple Wars, which, if I recall correctly, is a dating sim for the ladies about dating the bad boys in school. So, thumbs up on that one. Moving right along. What is coming up next week? Next week, PlayStation 4 is getting Dungeons 3, Elex, Gran Turismo Sport Limited Edition, which will feature a VR bonus mode. Also, No Heroes Allowed VR, which is, geez, I forget the full name of what the rest of that series was, but it was kind of like a retro RPG-themed version of Dungeon Master, but not Dungeon Master. What's that game called? Dungeon Keeper. Like a retro 8-bit version of Dungeon Keeper, only this one isn't 8-bit. But still, a little bit like that. Also, Rogue Trooper Redux, South Park The Fractured Butthole comes out, the Jackbox Party Pack 4, and WWE 2K18. And then later on in the week, Abyss, The Wraiths of Eden, Let's Sing 2018, and Real Farm. Coming up on Xbox One next week, Dungeons 3, Elex, Rogue Trooper Redux, South Park The Fractured Butthole is coming out. The Jackbox Party Pack 4, Torque L Physics Modified Edition, WWE 2K18, and then Abyss, The Wraiths of Eden, and Real Farm. Moving further along, the 3DS next week is getting Etrian Odyssey 5 Beyond the Myth. So that's a thing. And then Fire Emblem Warriors. Well, then that must mean Nintendo Switch. I forgot. What are you getting next week? Not Fire Emblem Warriors? Okay, good. No, it is. That's the 20th. Nintendo Switch. I'm reading this wrong. Is getting Don't Knock Twice, NBA 2K18, Rogue Trooper Redux, the Jackbox Party Packs, Putty Pals, Party Golf, Spelunker Party, and Fire Emblem Warriors and Siberia. And the Vita next week is getting nothing. Alright, so that wraps up what games came out this week, what's coming up next week. Anime in theaters. Though we can argue all day about whether it counts or not, any fans of RWBY will be pleased to know that tomorrow, October 12th at 7:30, the RWBY Volume 5 premiere will be in theaters. It's a Fathom event thing. It'll be at 7:30. One showing, one day. Hey, Season 5's beginning. Here's the first episode or couple of episodes in theaters. It's supposed to be like an hour and a half long. So that'll be nice for fans of RWBY. And on October 29th, 30th, and November 1st, Spirited Away will be in theaters. Again, a Fathom event. It's part of the G-Kids Studio Ghibli Fest thing. They're putting a different Ghibli film in theaters every month, and in the middle of it, they had to increase the number of days from making a 2-day event to a 3-day event, because I'm thinking these are doing pretty well. So, I know Spirited Away is a favorite for a lot of people, and yeah, October 29th, 30th, and November 1st, that will be back in theaters. Also, totally not anime, but apparently today and tomorrow, like, The Princess and the Frog is in a couple of theaters, and I almost feel bad for not seeing it in theaters. I felt bad for not seeing it in theaters when it first came out, but that's Disney is all Disney. Anyway, that concludes the anime in theaters and game release list. Please stay tuned. We will take a short break for Only Love by Shaggy featuring Pitbull and Gene Noble, and then when we get back, we will start talking about what, all sorts of video game news and stuff. So please stay tuned to 89.5 FM KCFV The Wave. Diverse music for your diverse mind. Thank you so much for listening. Now please enjoy Only Love by Shaggy featuring Pitbull and Gene Noble. Or not, your turn. That was Only Love by Shaggy featuring Pitbull and Gene Noble. Here on 89.5 FM, KCFV The Wave. Diverse music for your diverse mind. I'm your host, Jell, and welcome back to GameBabble Live, your video game news and information show, which airs every Wednesday from 1 to 3 p.m. And a slight correction. I told you I was suspicious, so I started checking the message board. Sure enough, it would appear that Summon Night 6 has been delayed again. Worse still, apparently there's a sample of the voice acting in the game, and it is sounding like people are not happy. Which doesn't surprise me, because big surprise, Gaijin Works is really working designs with a different name, and while everyone has fond childhood memories of working designs and what they did with Lunar, their stuff does not fly in a modern marketplace. I'm going to be blunt, Lunar is pretty much the only game I was okay with, and that's because the weird reality is that Lunar in Japanese was kind of garbage. Them rewriting the script as heavily as they did was actually a large part of why it managed to get such a strong Western following. It became sort of a cult classic. I didn't like it, because I'm very much a purist on these things, but it's like, it was a different time, and unfortunately, that time is over, and that's why Working Designs went out of business. Well, that and the fact that Sony, they mostly went out of business thanks to Sony completely screwing up their plans, because they had actually translated one of the Goemon game that they had released on PS2, except they finished it, they had it ready to go, and then Sony said, nah, doesn't pass quality control, this game looks like garbage. They're like, but you let them release it in Japan, yeah, but not in America. Anyway, only got a few minutes before we have to take another break. So let's go through a few quick ones. First of all, the SNES Classic has been hacked. No one is surprised. I mean, it's pretty much the same as the NES Classic. People who went in and hacked the NES Classic found that they could run Super Nintendo games on it, and also found they could run a couple of N64 games on it. On that note, yes, the N64 Classic has been trademarked and stuff, but no guarantees. Like, that could still just be a placeholder, and I know a lot of people are like, oh man, I want an N64 Classic, that'd be great. Please do remember that Microsoft owns Rare now, so if they made an N64 Classic, chances are it would not have GoldenEye, it would not have Banjo-Kazooie or Banjo-Tooie, it would not have, what's the name of that game? The shooty game with the kids and the guns. You know the one. I keep wanting to say Sigma Star Saga, but no, that's way forward. That other game. You know the one. Jet Force Gemini. What else was there? What else wouldn't be in there? Like, they might be able to get Donkey Kong 64, but that's about it. Maybe Diddy Kong Racing. But, and I mean, Microsoft would be very flexible on those. If Nintendo came up and said, hey, you want a cut of N64 Classic profits? Microsoft would say, do I? Shoot, anyone would. So, there's a chance, but I wouldn't bet on it. And that is one of those things where it's like, what would you want on an N64 Classic if it didn't have any Rare games? You know, Mario 64, obviously. I just realized, oh yeah, Wave Race 64, F-Zero X. Like, there actually are some good games. I would definitely put in a vote for Sin and Punishment. Nintendo knows that was one of their very successful games. Mario Kart 64 would be an obvious one. Like, what else? Like, it's an interesting thing to think about. The original Smash Brothers would be a good call, but if they made an N64 Classic, it would have to have 4 controller ports. I don't know, it'll be very interesting when they get there, and the N64 is certainly less fondly remembered than the NES and Super NES. So, well, we'll see what happens when they get to that point. yeah, there's that. Later on in the show, we will be discussing raw data. Also, while I was at GameStop, I'm not allowed to name prices, but this blew my mind. Mario and Sonic at the Rio Olympics on Wii U is going up in price. They are selling a used copy for more than the original price of a new copy, and I'm like, what? What? Why is this? Is it because it's the Mario game with the most Jesus in it? Because, it's in Rio, they have the big old statue which is in the background of everything, and you can actually get a stamp of it for the, what's it called? The, Miiverse. There's a Miiverse stamp for it, I know because I unlocked it. Maybe it's because the boxing is actually good in it. I picked it up, and now I'm glad I did, because of the boxing. There's a lot of different possibilities as to why that could be. But we're going to take a short break, and I just remembered, nearly forgot here, we are having a garage sale down here at Florissant Valley Community College. The Art Club and Humanities, they're doing a garage sale. It's, near the Humanities building, backside of the theater. So, you just walk into you'll see it if you just walk into, the main plaza of the college. You'll see the big old garage sale and stuff. So come on down and see what they have for that there. You might find something interesting. There's, they got a pile of VHS tapes of random old movies, a couple DVDs. There's a few Xbox games I saw, hot air popcorn popper, just all sorts of random things, as garage sales are wont to be. Either way, we're going to take a short break, so next up is I'll Name the Dogs by Blake Shelton, here on 89.5 FM KCFV The Wave. Diverse music for your diverse mind. Thank you so much for listening, and stay tuned for more GameBabble Live. That's What I Like by Bruno Mars, here on 89.5 FM KCFV The Wave. Diverse music for your diverse mind. I'm your host, Jell, and welcome back to GameBabble Live, your video game news and information show which airs every Wednesday from 1 to 3 p.m. So I've been looking into what the Summon Night 6 story is, namely if there was a Japanese voice option, because apparently, I haven't had a chance to hear it myself, but the general consensus is that the voice work in Summon Night 6 is Chaos Wars level, which is astonishing because Summon Night 6 actually has, well-known and beloved dub voice actors in it. And if you're unfamiliar with Chaos Wars, that was a game that was dubbed only because Sony wouldn't let them release it with just Japanese audio. So they literally had their friends and family come in and do the dub, and just did it on the pretty much nothing. Just, hey, who wants to voice a character? Go read these lines into a microphone. Great, thanks. It had a Japanese voice option, so it hardly ruined the game, and if anything, it actually made it better, because Chaos Wars was a relatively bland strategy game, and the translation was accurate-ish. So it wound up being kind of charming. You got the great Japanese audio sitting right there, and no one used it because that thing was amazing. So it's kind of inexcusable that Summon Night 6 apparently sounds like that, but then what do you expect? We're dealing with working designs. But the real question is it going to have Japanese audio? The exact report from Gaijin Works is, and I'm reading this directly from them. This is what they said on YouTube when someone said, will Summon Night 6 come with dual audio or no? And they said, we didn't have source code for this like we usually do, so we were somewhat at the mercy of the developer. We offered to pay the large license fee for the Japanese voice to offer dual audio, but we were told that even then the developer didn't have the capacity to make the changes necessary to incorporate it. Dual audio is becoming very complicated and expensive, especially when well-known actors are used in Japan. We don't expect it to get easier to add this feature, but we'll keep trying. I find this very strange, considering how many people have managed to pull off Japanese voices in these kinds of games. It's they're not even particularly, competent, translators have been able to pull this off. I mentioned Chaos Wars, that was by Mastiff, but that was back on PS2. But believe it or not, this segues very nicely into our next piece of news. Because you know who else was able to get Japanese audio in their game? Nippon Ichi America. Who, apparently, I didn't know this, but they have a history of making huge screw-ups in their localization efforts. In fact, apparently, when they translated The Witch and the 100 Knight, they actually accidentally introduced a bug that causes your PlayStation 3 to overheat due to a memory leak. They never fixed this bug. And it's like, wow, all you had to do was translate text and you managed to start melting PS3 CPUs. But they still managed to get the Japanese audio in that game. Funny that. See, that's the thing. A bunch of people are like, oh, Nippon Ichi America is so bad. And there was a big list of what their crimes against gaming were. And I was like, you know, these are bad. But I've seen worse. A lot of, like, you can't 100% this game because we released the DLC wrong. That, like, kept happening. And admittedly, I'm salty about the fact that I could never get compile for Hyperdimension Neptunia V. Because in the Japanese one, you could get a character representing the original company compile. Not Compile Heart, but the original one. Who had a carbuncle ears, a Puyo belt, and had an attack that involved dropping Puyos on people. And it was really awesome. But yeah, no. I'm getting off topic. Nippon Ichi America is apologizing for the poor Ys 8 localization. I've seen worse. It's sounding like Summon Night 6 might be the opposite end of the spectrum, where it's too localized. This one's just weird. 'Cause, like, there's a lot of text screw-ups and just really dumb lines that make it sound like they ran the thing through Google Translate. But what makes it weird is that a lot of this was in English already. Like, in the Japanese version of Ys 8, there's an area called the Crevice of the Archaeozoic Era, which it's written in English on the screen. But when they released it in America, they translated it to Archaeozoic Big Hole. Yeah! It was in English. It was in English, it was slightly clunky English, but you just made it clunkier, and that led to a lot of just really funny lines. There's also a conversation where someone says, I used to be a medical student. A medical student? What's that? It's a student who studies medicine. Great writing. The best writing. So, Nippon Ichi actually came out and apologized for how bad the Ys 8 localization is. They said they will patch the localization and make it better. In November, they're actually bringing back the dub voice actors to redub their lines. And they are very, very deeply sorry. And it's like, oh, wow, that's a big surprise. But then people are like, wait a second. This is actually a pretty typical translation from Nippon Ichi America. Well, what happened was pretty much every other entry in the Ys series was translated by Xseed, and Xseed is a fantastic localization company. They put so much time and care and effort into their localizations. Like, they actually make blog posts about things that were difficult to translate, and why they made certain changes in order to try to keep this one joke, or do this other thing, and if they ever have to change anything, like there was one sign in Akiba's Beat that could be considered slightly questionable in English, so they had to change it. And they had this big long post explaining why they changed it and how deeply sorry they are, even though it's just a random background texture that's really far out of the way, because they're that dedicated to not censoring their games. But this was one they just couldn't get away with. In fact, I'm not really discussing it on the radio because of that. So, it's like, I applaud what Xseed does. And Xseed had been localizing all the other games in the Ys series. Ys 8 was the first one they went to Nippon Ichi America for, supposedly because they wanted them to do the PC port of it. And Ys fans were very displeased. They didn't like the translation. It was not up to the quality that Xseed provided. And they knew that Nippon Ichi America wouldn't care, so they actually sent letters in Japanese to the original developers of Ys 8, to Falcom, with comparison pictures explaining just how bad the English localization was. And so that looks really bad when, you've got this Japanese company and they've hired Nippon Ichi America to, they've partnered with them to get this game released in the States, and now, all these Western fans are coming out and saying they did a really, really bad job, and yeah, so I'm going to guess that might have strong-armed Nippon Ichi America into giving the translation a do-over because people were so displeased. And on that note, the PC release will be coming in mid-December because apparently that PC port, the whole reason why they hired Nippon Ichi, is going very poorly. So, there's that. Moving on, what do we got in more video game news? Well, let's see. Ooh, here's an interesting one. There's a new GameStop Assassin's Creed ad that says, sorry, the bonus mission is blocked. I think it's unless you pre-order the game. Let me double check this. Sorry, the bonus mission is blocked. They're actually emailing this to people. And, yeah, GameStop ad treats bad pre-order tactics like a joke. Sorry, the bonus mission is blocked unless you pre-order Assassin's Creed Origin. And it's like, wow, that's interesting. You're just outright saying it, huh? Sometimes I don't even know. Right now, AAA games are in a really bad place. Loot boxes are probably the worst thing to ever happen to AAA games. On that note, I don't think I even talked about what happened with NBA 2K18, mostly because I wasn't following it. Because I don't really care about basketball, except for NBA Street Volume 2. That was really good. But, NBA 2K18, apparently it had really, really, really bad microtransactions in it. Like, when you make a custom basketball player, you had to spend exorbitant amounts of money to level them up. And people got so mad about it because it was like a free-to-play mobile game, except you had to pay full price for it, that they actually they complained so hard to 2K that they actually dropped the prices of their microtransactions by like 800%. It's like, wow, maybe you shouldn't have. And that's on top of the fact that, of course, the new Lord of the Rings Shadow of War game has loot crates and loot boxes in it. And I'm hearing something about loot boxes in WWE 2K18. And I'm glad to hear that there is a backlash against this. Because, I'm not a fan of Jim Sterling. He says some dumb things, but sometimes he says some smart things. And I definitely agree that loot boxes are kind of gambling. And if companies keep this up, it will cause federal regulation. Like, you can't release games like this in some countries in Europe because it is considered gambling. And I consider it to just be scummy, Rather than, oh, hey, you can pay a couple extra bucks to get this alternate costume you want, you instead pay a lower price for a random chance of maybe possibly getting the costume you want, but probably not, and then you wind up paying way, way, way more. It is manipulative and sick, and on that note, the Halloween costumes are here for Overwatch. This is one of the many reasons why I don't play Overwatch, to be honest. Like, I actually tried playing Paladins recently, and it's a blatant Overwatch knockoff, but I feel a lot less scammed when the game is actually free to play. Paladins is pretty alright, though. Like, I was impressed by how polished and how well it played. Paladins was okay. Let's see, moving right along. Apparently, Fantastic Beasts is getting a PlayStation VR something in the future. And that makes sense. You've probably heard me say, oh, that's a VR game a lot today. Because guess what? Yesterday was the first anniversary of the PlayStation VR. It came out 1 year ago. They've got a big old sale on PSN on PlayStation VR games, drastically discounted, on top of Raw Data coming out, which is a PlayStation VR game that finally lets me swing a sword at some robots. It only took a year. It's like, one of the things I've been saying is wait a year, wait a year, wait a year, and I still think... I'm thinking VR is actually going to take off next console generation. It's very much sort of a weird hobbyist thing. But yeah, no, PlayStation VR kind of has games on it now. And in spite of what everyone's saying about it, it's like, this is going pretty alright. It's getting there. This is 1 year later, and it certainly has done better and gotten more support than any other peripheral ever, probably. I need to actually double-check that. Like, does anyone know what the best-selling peripheral of all time is? Because I want to know that. Because it could be the NES Zapper, because that was packed with a lot of NESs, and I don't think was particularly expensive. It could have been the Dance Pad, because that was also, like, really, really inexpensive. And it maybe the Kinect, because it was so heavily marketed. Like, it's kind of dumb, but Microsoft went all in on that Kinect, and they marketed it so hard that people who had absolutely no interest in the Kinect bought it. Believe me, I watched. I had so many friends who hated motion control, hated music games, which is the one thing you play on your Kinect, hated minigame collections even, but they bought a Kinect for some reason. I still haven't fully figured it out. Especially because one of them was actually raving about how great Connectimals is, and Connectimals is garbage. Connectimals, if you've never played it, it's 2 Clippies. Like, remember Clippy from Microsoft Office? Okay, imagine taking a Clippy, applying it to a minigame collection, and making it look like a cute kitty. And then you have a Clippy that looks like a flying lemur for your Clippy to try to convince you to play minigames. I have a special level of hate for Connectimals. It was cute, yes, but that is not a virtual pet. Like, let me put it to you like this. There was a cheap knockoff of Connectimals called Fantastic Pets from the makers of Barbie Horse Adventures. It was better. Unquestionably, because it was actually like a virtual pet type thing. Actually, hey, this rambling has inadvertently segued. Speaking of virtual pets, the 20th anniversary Tamagotchis are coming to America. Yet we didn't get the 20th anniversary Digimons. I'm a little salty about that, because those looked way more impressive. The 20th anniversary Tamagotchis are just, oh, hey, we come in the original launch colors, and we're smaller, and it has, like, a single evolution line. And I'm like, really? You're not even gonna do something, like, super crazy, like, include 50 different Tamagotchi forms or something? Because that was what made the Digimon so compelling, was the fact that, it had the connectors, and it had a really big evolution tree for it. And yet that's the one that doesn't come to America, because the world makes sense sometimes. Moving right along, today is just sort of the day of weird news, because guess what? Microsoft is releasing an update for Mighty No. 9 on Xbox One themselves to make the game more stable. Little late. Little bit late. But that is something very weird. Concept, the original developers, into Creates, they're not making the stability patch. Microsoft is. Microsoft themselves are stepping in to patch Mighty No. 9. The ride never ends with Mighty No. 9. It's nothing but a bag of disappointments. By the way, still waiting on that Vita release. How's that going? How's that going, Inafune? Hey, how's Red Ash going, Inafune? How's it going? Yeah, I got nothing. And moving further along, we've got some good news in terms of people who want games on the Nintendo Switch. Because Harvest Moon Light of Hope will be coming to both PlayStation 4 and Switch. That's the next Harvest Moon game, which is, of course, the long-running farming RPG series that inspired Stardew Valley. Stardew Valley might be a better game, though, just because it's a fan game that a lot of love went into. Has a little bit of... Star Ocean, or Harvest Moon games, I'm sorry, we'll talk about Star Ocean in a minute, actually. Harvest Moon games tend to get released with relative frequency, so that's sort of a thing. But you know what else is coming to the Switch? Fear Effect Sedna. They are making a new Fear Effect game. For anyone who's unfamiliar, I say that a lot. That should just be the name of the show. GameBabble Live. For anyone who's unfamiliar, Fear Effect was sort of a graphic novel, slightly anime-ish, but not Aeon Flux-ish, PS1 game that had tank controls, played a lot like Resident Evil. Probably most well-known because the second game featured a lesbian relationship, and that was one of the main selling points of Fear Effect 2 Retro Helix, which I think was a prequel. Anyway, they decided, hey, we're going to bring back Fear Effect, and it's going to be on PS4, Xbox One, PC, and Switch. To which I believe everyone can say, thank you. Again, the Switch is a weird console because it is a drastically underpowered system compared to the others, but it has a great hook to it, being the whole portable console hybrid thing, and as such, it has sold incredibly well. Like, the Switch is a huge success, and now everyone's like, so where are the games at? And that's where we're at, because now everyone's sitting there like, oh crap, where are our games? We need to release something on the Switch, and everything takes too much processing power. Except, thankfully, we have some smaller indie developers, and just generally smaller developers, in general, saying, hey, yeah, we could release this on the Switch. Of course, this also results in people who utterly lose their mind when a game gets released on Vita and not the Switch. Because the Switch is certainly more powerful than the Vita, so why aren't you releasing it? That's the case right now with the Secret of Mana remake. Especially because they did this Secret of Mana collection in Japan for the Switch. And they've got a Secret of Mana remake coming out for the PlayStation 4, PlayStation Vita, and PC, but not Switch. And anyone can look at it and go, the Switch could do this. The Wii U could do that. Why is this not on the Switch? And that is a good question. Anyway, I do believe it is break time before we get back with more video game news and information, because we're going to get into some larger discussions. And, there's been a couple of those today. Either way, coming up next is A Little More Summertime by Jason Aldean, whose name I nearly read as Jason Alderaan. So there's a new Star Wars coming out. A Little More Summertime by Jason Aldean here on 89.5 FM KCFV The Wave. Diverse music for your diverse mind. And please stay tuned for more game. That was Round Here Buzz by Eric Church here on 89.5 FM KCFV The Wave. Diverse music for your diverse mind. I'm your host, Jell, and welcome back to more GameBabble Live, your video game news and information show which airs every Wednesday from 1 to 3 p.m. Also, I need to mention this more often. There's a garage sale going on down here at Florissant Valley Community College, and apparently now a bunch of things there are half off, so things are cheap. They got some stuff. Come on down. It's, pretty much behind the theater, next to the Humanities building. There's sort of this big old stagey thing. Basically, you walk into the main plaza of the college, look over probably to your left, if you approach from most. Actually, yeah, I think from nearly every entrance, it would either be straight in front of you or to your left. And you'll see it. There's a big old table. It's on a stage. You got people there. It's full of stuff. It's a garage sale, and we're having it here at Florissant Valley Community College. It's benefiting the Humanities Department and like arts and stuff. So, good times. Come on down. Anyway, getting back to where we were. Let's see, more random video game news. IDW's Sonic comic begins in April. And it's like, oh, hey, IDW is doing a Sonic comic. And IDW, if you're unfamiliar with them, they are a comic publisher that generally does a lot of comics based on old classic franchises. They're currently in charge of the Transformers comic. They have a Gem and the Holograms comic. They do, like, I think they were doing a new, like, Archie series, actually, which makes me wonder if Archie Comics went out of business or something. Because that's sort of one of the interesting things, and part of what actually makes me a little wary about IDW's Sonic comic. It might be good, but the Sonic the Hedgehog comic book was actually handled by Archie for over 20 years. Like, from the Sega Genesis days up until just a few months ago, they've had this same comic running for a while, and I know it certainly has its vocal fans, to be blunt. So it is slightly disheartening to hear it sort of being rebooted, but at the same time, is it being rebooted? I don't know the full deal with IDW's Sonic comic, and who knows what direction they'll actually take it in. Especially now that I realize that's right, IDW is doing Archie, so what the heck is Archie Comics actually doing? Are they even in business? It's a good question for everyone to ask. But that's a thing. Moving right along. Star Ocean, I told you I'd mention it. Star Ocean 4 is coming to PS4 in 4K resolution, drastically remastered, and it's coming to PC. It'll be the first Star Ocean ever to be released on PC, and the PC version will even feature mouse and keyboard control support. So they're actually putting an effort on a PC port of Star Ocean 4, which was last generation's Star Ocean game, and probably the one I enjoyed the most. It had a lot of tonal whiplash, but like, if this thing can have a more if it's the same game with a more stable frame rate, I might enjoy it. I might actually play this one. There was a lot of things I kind of liked about Star Ocean 4. I felt bad that I didn't get further in it. But I was playing the 360 one, which was a multi-disc mess, and they changed a bunch of things for the 360 version that they unchanged for the PS3 version when that eventually managed to come out, and now we'll have a PS4 version. Maybe I'll pick it up, but what I found interesting, I found this news on Silicon Era, because that's where I get most of my news, and right next to it was a thing talking about how the top-selling games of the month are Dragon's Dogma Dark Arisen and Mario and Luigi Superstar Saga plus Bowser's Minions. All of which are re-releases, and there comes a point where you have to say, do we have too many re-releases? Is this generation just a rerun? Because I'm starting to think it's a rerun. And I mean, I'm contributing. Some of these re-releases are things that I want. Final Fantasy XII getting super enhanced with pretty visuals and, all the changes to the Zodiac job system to actually make the Zodiac job system cool. I bought that. I loved that. I still love that. Because Final Fantasy XII is one of my favorites. And there's been so many just, hey, let's re-release this old game. Dragon's Dogma Dark Arisen just came out. No sign of Dragon's Dogma Online, of course, which has been out in Japan for years. But Dragon's Dogma Dark Arisen is out on PS4 now. Hey, we got Star Ocean 4. It's coming to PS4. Hey, we have the entire previous console generation coming soon to PS4. Which, I'll be happy if someone wants to re-release Ninja Blade. That ain't happening. I like Ninja Blade, okay? It was one of my favorite games of the last generation. That and Magna Carta 2. Those are like the best 360 exclusives for me. I have weird taste. But yeah, so I'm like, why where are the new games? I guess it's because new games actually take a lot of time and effort and energy to develop, and people can't get them made in time, and they're like, oh crap, we need to turn a profit. How can we turn a profit easily? Oh, take an old game from a generation or two ago and re-release it in 4K. As, after all, we are also getting Zone of the Enders 2 in 4K with VR support. See, I can't not buy that now. It's got VR support for the whole game. I am super stupid excited for that. But Yeah, that's about where we're at with that. So let's talk about Raw Data finally, because that was pretty much my big purchase of the week. And it is a PlayStation VR game, and I have to say, at the full price tag, I would be just a smidge iffy on it. Just a smidge. But launch week sale makes it a good bit cheaper, and at that price, I'm kind of in love with it. Raw Data is a game that was been released on PC for a while, and it kind of shows, because apparently they've made a ton of revisions since the original PC release. Like, originally it was teleport movement only, but everyone complained, and so they added in a smooth movement option. Although, strangely, there's no smooth turning on the PS4 release. I hope they consider patching that in, because they certainly have some patching to do, as the PS4 Pro patch did not release, and that'll be coming out next week. And also, like, the European release got delayed by a week. Basically, Sony screwed up a bunch of things, because Sony always screws up a bunch of things. I'm a Dead or Alive 5 fan. I've watched Sony screw up. That's the fun thing, when you're trying to release a product across multiple territories on multiple systems simultaneously, and it's not a big AAA thing, you get to watch and find out who can... You get to watch all the companies screw up in one way or another. They never get it completely right. Someone will forget to post something, someone will screw something up horribly, and then you'll have to, like, wait an extra week or two, because they're like, no, we're not putting anything up until the next big update period. But yeah, Raw Data is an interesting game. It's kind of a wave-based survival game, except the stages get way more complex later on. You can roam around, and you've got 4 different playable characters. There's a robot ninja girl who uses a katana, a laser katana. There's her father who's an old assassin that uses an energy bow. There's sort of a cowboyish guy that has a pistol, and then there's another guy who has a big old shotgun. And you get to pick which one you want to play as, and it uses 2 PlayStation moves. That's the only control scheme, because they do a lot of wacky things with dual hands. Like the shotgun guy, you're actually supposed to hold the 2 moves like you're holding the shotgun with 2 hands, because you use one to fire and the other to cock the shotgun and reload and stuff. And it's like, wow, that's actually a really cool idea. Unfortunately, PlayStation Move is not the best controller for that, because there's only one camera. That's the main problem with the Move, is that there's only one camera. And so what you wind up with in that case is a lot of instances where one Move controller accidentally blocks the other Move controller, and that can be a little iffy. But I was super happy to finally have a game where I get to swing around a laser sword. Unfortunately, the game kind of opens with a gigantic game-breaking bug that I had to go through 3 times. Basically, if you don't mess with the left or right-handedness settings, and I guess maybe it's because I tried to turn on smooth movement before they were going to let me use smooth movement, because I wanted that right at the beginning, and they were like, no, you have to complete the tutorial first. What happens, you start it up, the game loads, and then you die during the loading screen. And when you respawn, it just says dead on screen. And the person instructing you in the tutorial cuts themselves off. And then the tutorial can't progress because it won't recognize when you're pressing X or circle to turn around. Because that's the first thing they do. They're like, press X or circle to turn around. And I'm just doing that. And I'm like, okay, I can teleport all over this room. I'm hitting all these buttons. I can't get anything working. I couldn't progress. And I did that like 3 times. And finally someone was like, oh yeah, mess with the handedness setting. Because some people were like, oh, this happens if you try to be left-handed. But I was trying to be right-handed, so I had to switch it to left-handed. And then it worked. And it starts out in this dark room, and you have to turn on the power. And my mind was blown as soon as I turned on the power, because that number one, I just bought DW VR as my last PlayStation VR game, and that game was a gigantic disappointment. And so I was very surprised when, after such a huge bug, I finally get the tutorial to continue. I turn on the power and everything is gorgeous and it's playing an anime on the TV and everything is super polished and well made. And I'm like, what the crap? This is actually like a game real effort went into? And yeah, like it feels very fleshed out. I'm very pleased by what I see. And thankfully, it has sword combat. And this has been a thing for me. Because, of course, what's the first thing you think of when you have a motion controller in your hand? You think, I want to swing a lightsaber. And, like, ever since the Wii came out, people are like, so where's my lightsaber game? And I mean, yes, there's Star Wars games on the Wii, but they're all garbage. Everyone's always been like, where's the lightsaber game? Where's the lightsaber game? And it kept winding up on horrible things. Like, there was never a lightsaber PlayStation Move game. They put Microsoft paid money to get Kinect exclusivity, and then, oh, big surprise. Star Wars Kinect isn't going to work because the Kinect is stupid. I mean, cripes, do you know how huge the credits are for Star Wars Kinect? There's well over 200, possibly 1,000 people involved with Star Wars Kinect across multiple companies. The end credits are like 20 minutes long. Look them up on YouTube. 20 minutes of credits. I don't know if more people have ever worked on a video game than Star Wars Kinect, and still the best they could do was the dancing thing. Oh, everyone loves to make fun of the dancing thing, but you know why that's in there? Because it's the only thing the Kinect could do right. The Kinect is a terrible controller. Perfectly fine dance pad, though. Like, you got some good dancing games on it. But anything else is just a complete mess on the Kinect. So, realizing that, they called up, I think High Voltage Software might have done that one. They had just made, like, a country dance game on Kinect, and they were like, hey, you guys are cheap and made a decent Dance Central knockoff. Please do one for Star Wars as well. And then they did, and it worked. So it was like that's the thing. The one part of Star Wars Kinect that actually works is the stupid dance game. And now I'm going off on a tangent because there is a story explanation for that. The stupid dance game with dancing Han Solo and the bad parody music. Actually, slightly charming parody music. The story explanation for it is that it is a corrupt archive file. Something got screwed up and two files got mixed together, and so that's the explanation as to why Han Solo is dancing in Star Wars Kinect. They came up with an explanation for it. But what was I talking about? I was talking about lightsabers. Let's get back to lightsabers. So yes, the first thing anyone thinks of when they get a motion controller in their hand is, I want to swing a lightsaber. And then we spent an entire generation sitting there going, so when lightsaber game? And we did get one good sword combat game. Sports Champions has Gladiator Duel in it, but it's not a lightsaber. And so, VR, that's the thing. We have the PlayStation VR, and I think everyone's thinking, so when lightsaber? I was thinking when lightsaber. It didn't even have to be a lightsaber. Just let me swing a sword in a game. Okay, we have Fruit Ninja. That's freaking great. Can I hit an enemy with it? And we're waiting and we're waiting. DWVR comes out and is a gigantic disappointment because basically your sword in DWVR is an instant kill stick. I've had enemies just walk into the blunt side of my sword and die. And there's so many people who will tell you, oh, well, you can't really do sword combat with motion control because there's no tactile feedback. I mean, what happens when your sword clashes with your opponent's sword? Your sword would bounce backwards, but, your hand would keep moving. Yeah, it's not that bad. In Sports Champions, the way they handled that was, you clash with an enemy and you'd see your character go into hit stun, but it doesn't stop tracking the controller. And so after they leave hit stun, it resyncs its position to where your controller is. The arm immediately moves over as fast as it can to where your controller is in space. And I think that would probably work in VR as well. Yes, there would be a brief disconnect, but oh well, I think it'll work out fine. And admittedly, using a laser sword kind of helps because you get this laser katana in raw data, and it can just go through things. So that also works. But either way, the laser katana is actually working pretty darn great. And apparently the PC version of the game, because it's been on PC for a while, actually has online multiplayer, where you can duel with katanas. The PSVR one does not have that. They are trying to patch it in, but they are making no guarantees. Apparently, they're having some issues. Because that's one of the other problems with the PlayStation VR, is that VR requires you to run a game at 60 FPS minimum, as well as display 2 images simultaneously, one for each eye. And a lot of the PC VR games, people have a lot of trouble porting them to PS4, because it has to do all that on a regular PS4. You can't require the Pro. And as such, people are like, I can't get... they're having a lot of trouble getting games to work. They have to cut things back. Like, I hear that the PlayStation 4 version of Raw Data supposedly has less enemies in it. Like, they had to remix what the enemy swarms were like. I'm not feeling it, because I'm like, wow, this is a lot of enemies I'm dealing with. Like, it's already pretty Dynasty Warriors, so I'm okay. But also, this is weird. The game runs at 60 FPS, but the enemies run at 30 FPS, which I thought would look a lot worse than it actually did. Honestly, didn't bother me at all, which surprised me, because earlier, there's a zombie game in VR called Arizona Sunshine. It's very popular on PC, but when they ported it to PS4, it was a little bit of a disaster. And one of the things I really remember was the enemies moving at this weirdly low frame rate, especially when they were a few feet away from you. Yeah, apparently they were running at like 15 or 12 FPS. It was like 30 FPS enemies in a 60 FPS world. Not so bad, although it helps that Raw Data is all about fighting robots. Because, robot is moving at a slower frame rate than the rest of the world, looks weirdly perfectly alright. A little bit fitting for a robot. So, I'm very pleased with what I see with Raw Data. I'm happy to finally have a game that lets me swing a sword, and they actually took it further. Because apparently, you could just ball your hands up into fists and start punching enemies. Shoot, that was the one thing that impressed me, because when I was getting frustrated with the bugged-out tutorial at the beginning of the game, I started punching objects, and it actually reacted to it. Like, there was the controller vibrated when I tried to punch objects, and I was like, yes! I can punch random objects, and it tells me I punched a random object. It's so minor, and yet it means so much. And the fact that I can put my katana away, or use my offhand to just start slugging robots is great. Like, when I get home, I actually intend to try to do a wave of enemies where I don't use my katana at all. I just punch them. Because I just want to get in there and start throwing fists. But what further surprised me, okay, so you have to choose between left-handed and right-handed. And this is a little bit of a problem for me because I'm mix-handed. Some things I'm right-handed for, some things I'm left-handed for, because back in elementary school, one of my teachers forced me to be right-handed, thinking it would improve my penmanship. Joke's on her, my penmanship's worse than ever now. Maybe the joke's on us all. Yeah, that's a terrible idea, by the way. Don't do it. Don't force anyone to be right-handed. It's dumb. But now, I don't know what handed I am. It varies depending on things. And more than that, apparently it's quite common for people to be right-handed, but to want to use a sword with their left hand. And that's certainly what happened with me. So I pick up the sword, and I'm like, oh crap, this feels wrong using it with my right hand. So I switch it, so I try, and sure enough, I was actually able to grab it with my left hand. Now, mind you, when you switch it to your offhand, you're grabbing it at the bottom, but that worked relatively well. And I found that the game also supported holding the sword two-handed. And then, it sort of links your two hands together in terms of how the sword winds up moving, and I need to spend more time with that, because I'm like, wow, really, I can, okay, and there's, a lot of that, I found, it was letting me switch hands and do all sorts of goofy two-handed things, and there's, a gimmick for every weapon. Everyone knows how the bow works in VR, because there's so many VR games with bows, but extra credit to this energy bow in Raw Data, because as you pull the bowstring, it generates the energy arrow, and that just looks so good. I mentioned the shotgun, where you have to hold it like a shotgun. That gets actually a little glitchy with the PlayStation Move. And then with the handgun, to reload, you actually pull clips of bullets out from around your hip, from like your right hip or left hip, and you slap it into the gun. And it's like, okay, that's kind of cute. And like they put a lot of detail into it, because I noticed that you can aim down the barrel of the gun, and what's more, I actually started instinctively trying to steady the handgun with my offhand, and it animated properly for that. And more than that, the gun started to glow when I did that. So maybe there's like a damage bonus if you actually use two hands to fire your handgun? I don't know. But it's these little things. It's the fact that, you put the hand near the handgun and it like splays out just right, so that way it's like you're actually steadying the handgun with your offhand. Those kinds of things can add so much to an experience like that. And I'm loving the plot, even though it hasn't really been explained to me. Like, near as I can tell, we're dealing with sort of a cyberpunk dystopian future, and there's an evil giant mega corporation that's putting on a good public face. At the beginning, you break into their building, and you hack the concierge AI in order to have it let you in, and you start fighting robots. And the thing that I really like is the concierge AI actually starts freaking out about this, because he's like, wait a second, you may be an unauthorized intruder, but our company is not supposed to have killbots. And, like, I love that after you beat the first stage, like, he says, man, you think you know a company, and then they do something like this. This is just like the room with the bodies. And then your helper person is like, wait, what room with the bodies? So that's going to be stage 2. I didn't get the game all up and running until about, like, 1 a.m. So I'm moving on to stage 2. I might stream this tonight. Who knows? I wish I was streaming it last night, because I was just giddy for this game. I've been waiting to have some one-to-one sword control for a while. Now, that said, the sword control is a little shaky. It could use a bit of motion smoothing, which is where you add a slight bit of delay to the controls, very slight, in order to prevent it from shaking everywhere. Spark does it, like, fantastically. VR Invaders also does it, but Spark does it, like, amazingly. And it's like, it might benefit from a little bit of that. Anyway, I think it's time for another break, and I have no clue what I'm going to talk about when we get back. But we'll think of something. So, let's see. What do we have to listen to? How about... I have absolutely no clue. You know what? Come on, Get Happy by the Partridge Family. Why not? Here on 89.5 FM KCFV The Wave. Diverse music for your diverse mind. Thank you so much for listening. And do remember, we have a big old garage sale going on down here. And things are like half off and stuff. So come on down. Go to Main Plaza. You'll see it probably on your left. Again, come on, Get Happy by the Partridge Family. Here on 89.5 FM That was Privacy by Chris Brown, here on 89.5 FM KCFV The Wave. Diverse music for your diverse mind. I'm your host, Jell. Welcome back once again to GameBabble Live, your video game news and information show, which airs every Wednesday from 1 to 3 p.m. Anyway, before we begin, need I remind you, we have a garage sale going on down in sort of the main plaza. It's behind the theater, next to the Humanities building. Basically, go to the main plaza, it'll either be straight in front of you or look to your left. And you'll probably see it sitting right there. It's kind of hard to miss. It's kind of on a stage. You'll see a bunch of stuff. It looks like a garage sale. And things are, apparently, I'm hearing they're putting some things half price now. So there's a bunch of stuff over there. Come on down, take a good look. It'll get us some money for the art clubs and humanities and stuff like that. So good times. Anyway, I just remembered something I forgot to mention that's a little bit important. Do not back the seedy retro console. It is very seedy. Ironically enough. The console is called Seedy, S-E-E-D-I. And the idea is that it's a retro console that can load games off of CDs, so it's good for PS1, Sega CD, Turbo Duo, i.e. the thing I freaking wanted. Like, seriously, I've been waiting for someone to do a Turbo Duo thing, because I still need to get my actual Turbo Duo fixed, and I love that thing. And apparently it's a very common problem where just one of the little wires will just short out and someone has to replace it, but that means you have to know which one it's going to be, and you have to solder it, and it's a bunch of BS, but it's a common problem and commonly fixed. I just haven't gotten around to finding a shop and taking it in, finding out how much they're going to charge me to get it fixed, because I kind of love my Turbo Duo. So this is the thing I've actually been waiting for, and then come to find out that they're trying to kickstart this thing, and they're using RetroArch without permission. RetroArch is an emulator front end, pretty much designed, well, it's designed to be used with pretty much everything, but a lot of people are like, oh, I'll slap this beautiful front end onto my Raspberry Pi, and now I have just the most fantastically wonderful emulation box anyone could ever ask for. And in a lot of ways, that's pretty much what the CD Retro console looks like. An overpriced Raspberry Pi with a CD drive and RetroArch in it. The thing was, they actually talked with the RetroArch people, and they were like, please don't, we don't want anyone making money off of this. And they were like, no, we're going to use RetroArch, and we're going to make money off of you guys' work. And so, yeah, please don't back the Retro console. Also, do not back Mario RPG 2, because that was a terrible idea. Yeah, friend of mine linked this. It's beautiful. There's a Kickstarter for a Mario RPG 2, and it's like, well, why wouldn't I back that? Because it's not Mario RPG 2. It is some kid saying, yo, Nintendo never made a proper Mario RPG 2. I'm gonna do it. But I need money to hire people to actually make it. And it's like, really, this is your plan? Just, I bet if I get, like, a couple thousands of dollars, I can hire everyone I need. It's like, you're telling me it's not going to be a crappy RPG Maker game? Because it sounds like it's going to be a crappy RPG Maker game. And, yeah, like, the entire plan is to do something like AM2R, another Metroid 2 remake, which, got DMCA'd by Nintendo because they didn't own the rights to Metroid. And this guy, the thing was, another Metroid 2 remake was made into, it was completely free, had no crowdfunding, there was nothing else to it. And that was why they thought maybe they could get away with it, is because it's just a fan project. This, you're trying to raise money for it? Oh, that is very against the law. And when you read the possible challenges, they're like, well, Nintendo might DMCA us, but that's why we need money, so we can have a legal team. And I'm like, no, you don't have a leg to stand on. You can't just make a Mario game. You can't. It's stupid. Oh, it has to be like some 12-year-old kid or something. Maybe 15. I don't know. It has to be some kid who started a Kickstarter. It's got to get shut down. I'm sure of it. Gotta be some kid who just does not know how things work. It's beautiful. So that's the Mario RPG 2 Kickstarter. But also, yeah, don't back the CD Retro console. It looks kind of nice, but yeah, no, you're trying to make money off of someone else's work. Being kind of seedy there, CD. What can you say? What can you friggin' say? Oh, and I also didn't mention that God Eater 3 is announced for consoles. They are making a third God Eater game. It will be on consoles. It's gonna be a thing. Hooray. So that's a lot of what's going on right now. I think in terms of upcoming games, I'm most interested in WWE 2K18, finding out just how bad the loot boxes are. It's like, are you really gonna screw me over with this? And I noticed the deluxe edition comes out on the 13th, and the full edition and the regular edition comes out on the 17th. So I'm like, What's the deal with that? And most importantly, I'm wondering, when should I expect this to show up at Family Video? Because I'm going to rent it, but I'm not buying that. I'm not buying that first thing. It's like, how bad are your loot boxes? If there are there loot boxes? How bad are they? Is the customization improved or downgraded? What are you doing? And while we're at it, what the heck is Miko Gakko Monogatari Kaede episode? That's a game that is coming to... That is a game that is coming to America. And I have no clue what I'm looking at. What? That can't be... No. What is that? What am I looking at? Because that... Whatever I just looked up looks way too good. Well, hold on. Looking around. Fantasy Hero Unsigned Legacy. That's interesting. Scrolling. Air Race Speed. Steins Gate. I wonder how old this looks like a really old list. I have no clue. Miko Gakko Monogatari looks like a very low poly count game about being a shrine maiden, but what's this thing? Zodiac. Okay. The game that had my mind blown is something called Zodiac, which is a very impressive looking RPG that I really, really, really want to play right now. What is this? Is it on anything other than a Vita? I have a Vita, but man, now I gotta look that up. Oh boy. Tripping and falling down a rabbit hole as usual. That's what happens. So yeah, that's about where we're at. Let's see. I feel like there was something else worth talking about. Let's see. Don't back the CD. Don't back dumb things on Kickstarter. I don't know. I think Kickstarter's kind of been ruined recently thanks to a number of projects that went poorly, and that's a thing to talk about. I am really wondering how Bloodstained Ritual of the Night will turn out, which is, of course, the new game from Koji Igarashi, guy who's been behind Castlevania since Symphony of the Night. He, of course, left Konami, and he is making pretty much Castlevania minus the Castlevania license. And it's like, oh, that's okay. Pretty much his mighty number 9. The question is, will it hold up? Apparently, the demo was actually pretty impressive, which is good, because, Mighty Number 9 was looking bad since the demo. People had a lot of beef with the demo, and most of their problems did not get resolved, so now we're sitting around wondering what's going to happen with Bloodstained Ritual of the Night. I'm very curious myself. And on that note, that has been a central focus of mine. Getting a little bit more personal. If you go over to the stream archives, you'll find links to it on the YouTube channel. But my Twitch stream is Twitch users GeltonZ, GELTONZ. I stream on there occasionally, and recently I've actually been diving deep into good old Castlevania Judgment, which is 9 years old now. And I'm going back to it. And this was partially because another streamer I was watching picked the game up and was like, it's a Halloween stream, let's play spooky games, vote on what game you want me to play. Picked up Castlevania Judgment thinking that it would be a terrible, terrible game. Do I need to say, if you're unfamiliar, Castlevania Judgment was a Castlevania fighting game on the Nintendo Wii. Sort of a Naruto Ultimate Ninja Storm Power Stone kind of fighting game, where you have sort of a back view and you're running around a free arena. And it was infamous because they had all the characters redesigned by the Death Note artist. And even people who like the Death Note artist really, really, really hated the character redesigns. because they just deviated way too far from the original, though in a lot of cases, people didn't even know which original the characters were based on. Like, there's a reason why Simon Belmont has red hair. That's because it's based on the Ayami Kojima design with the feather boa. Yeah, go look up Simon Belmont, and you'll see the one I'm talking about with the black feather boa, and you'll go, oh. Well, now it looks, well, comparatively speaking, but Castlevania Judgment did not get a very good reputation. In fact, many outlets gave it a 1 out of 5, and it may well be the single most divisive Castlevania game ever. Just, people hated it. But every time I see someone stream that game, they always go in thinking, this game's going to be terrible, this game's going to be awful, it's going to be so bad. And if they actually take the time to learn it, they walk away going, that was actually pretty good. Like, the best example of that is still the old Yo Video Games thing. Like, if you look up on YouTube, Yo Video Games Castlevania Judgment, go to the original one and just look at episode 1, just look at the first episode of it and the last episode of it. Because the first episode of it, they go in just completely bashing the game, and by the end of it, they're like, man, this game's really good. It's a very simple fighting game. And indeed, the character designs are a little weird. But it's actually pretty fun once you get into it. And so I've been like, I need to do a review of that game. And that means diving back into it. But I realized, I don't want to hook up my Wii. Oh, wait, I've got my Wii U already hooked up. So I pop it in my Wii U, and I'm like, oh, wait. This doesn't have GameCube controller ports, because the GameCube adapter does not work with Wii mode, which is unfortunate. And, yeah, Castlevania Judgment supports classic and GameCube controllers, but thankfully I had a Hori Battle Pad handy, which is a classic controller shaped like a GameCube controller that they made for Super Smash Bros. On the Wii U. And I was like, good, I'll try using this, and sure enough, it worked out. But since Castlevania Judgment actually had online play, that means the save data is write protected, and I can't copy it. So I had to go and unlock everything all over again, which I'm nearly done with. But unlocking the 4 locked characters take you about 7 hours. In fact, it'll take you 5 hours to get to the first ending. If I have any one complaint with the game, it's the way they handled the story mode. Because every character has their own story mode, but at the start, you only have Simon Belmont and Alucard, and then you beat each character to unlock the next character. Okay, fine. Except, you aren't playing the real story mode. After the rival fight, it just ends, and it says, I accept the soul key, X yet remain. And once you beat the game with 12 different characters, then it unlocks true story mode, which is exactly the same as regular story mode, except you get an extra fight against Aeon, which gets a cutscene, and then you actually get to fight the final boss, which is the Time Reaper. And then you beat the Time Reaper, and you get a text ending after 5 hours of work and beating the game with everyone in order to actually beat the game. And you have to beat true story mode with the 4 locked characters to unlock them. So I've unlocked Dracula, I still need to get Death, Shinoa, and Aeon. Admittedly, Shinoa and Aeon unlock instantly if you have a DS with a copy of Order of Ecclesia handy. Unfortunately, I got lazy and didn't look for it, because the thing is, you're pretty much just unlocking all the characters right off the bat like that anyway. I'll see if I know where I put mine, though, because then I don't have to beat the game with them. Beating the game with Death is definitely next on my list, because he actually has a fun moveset. They did a really good job with his moveset. He has a bunch of his moves from older Castlevania games. And the main thing was, it wasn't feeling like Halloween for me. Like, with how hot the weather's been, thank goodness it's cool enough, it still felt like summer for me until I saw that guy play Castlevania Judgment, and I'm like, I'm totally in a Halloween mood now. So I've spent the past couple days streaming Castlevania Judgment. I haven't put those ones on my YouTube channel, because they're not really worth it. But I've spent the past few days streaming Castlevania Judgment and working towards unlocking everyone and cooking up a review. I've got the script partially written. I have the script entirely written for a Star Fox 2 review. I just need to capture some footage of normal mode so you can see what a planet looks like. Because I'm in the middle of a hard mode playthrough that I've been capturing footage from, and, yeah, Andros decided to be very, very mean to me. He's very, very mean to me. I've been pinned down. Corneria's at 85% damage. It's flashing red. We're not doing good. But, yeah, that's where I'm at. And but I'm going to be honest, though. With Castlevania Judgment, it needs to be said. You're free to not like those character designs. They're weird. I understand. Even as someone who knows where the Simon and Maria designs came from, they still look way too modern for Castlevania. But awkward character designs does not make something a bad fighter, okay? A 1 out of 5 for a game with responsive controls, a decently sized moveset, exciting visuals, really, really good music, and, like, some cool concepts with the stage interaction and the way they implemented the Castlevania items into it. Yeah, it might be a smidge low. That's not even getting into the whole, like, castle mode and the unlockable accessories and the fact that it was one of the few Wii games that actually had online play and the netcode actually wasn't too bad. I'm just saying maybe that game didn't get a fair shake. Which is funny because Wiimote. Like, seriously, I literally just saw a list of, like, 10 terrible fighting games, and Castlevania Judgment was the first one on the list, and the explanation was, oh, because it has bad motion control, and also I don't like these character designs. Like, okay, fine, but, every time you boot the game up, it tells you could use a classic or GameCube controller. Literally every time. You don't get to just go, oh, but waggle control. No, you clearly did. You don't need to use the waggle control. Anyway, I'm sorry. Just ran out of things. Started going into that. I haven't been able to pick up a lot of the recent game releases that have been interesting me. Like, I've been able to pick up some, but certainly not all of them. Then again, I would buy so many of these things if I had the money. But no. Gotta be a little frugal, and so Raw Data VR has been my central focus this week. But either way, I thank you very much for joining us here on GameBabble Live, video game news and information show. We will be back next Wednesday from 1 to 3 p.m. as usual. And I think the garage sale might still be going on. I don't know how long that lasts for. But, yeah, it's, things are half off, and it's pretty easy to find the garage sale, and, yeah, that's a thing. Have one of those down here. Anyway, thank you so much for listening to 89.5 FM KCFV The Wave, diverse music for your diverse mind. Coming up next, we have True Colors by Zed featuring Kesha, here on 89.5 FM KCFV The Wave. Thank you so much for listening, and I hope to see you